my FPL Game Week 18 transfer plans and team selection. In today's video, all rolled into one. We're going to have a look at my team going into Game Week 18. We're going to discuss some first transfer plans. Now, I took the -8 going into Game Week 17. It's gone okay. It could have gone better, definitely, because some of the players like Morgan Rogers and Semenyo that I sold did get returns, but I did buy Alexander Isak. We'll cover all of that in this video, and we'll have a look at my first plans because, of course, it looks like Saka is going to be out for quite a while for Arsenal. So, a lot like me and like you will be looking for replacements for him and captaincy and everything going into Game Week 18 in just a few days. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here. And today, it is Game Week 18. It is on Thursday. We just have a few days. Of course, we don't have the usual week off. Now we're into the Christmas run of fixtures. So it's a very quick turnaround. So we're doing team selection, transfer plans, all in one video today. I thought this video over the Christmas period would be really easy. I took a -8 so that I could roll my transfers every single week. And that was the plan until we saw Saka go off with a potential hamstring injury. So we'll be discussing all of his potential replacements in this video as well. Before we do that, a quick look at how we're getting on in Game Week 17. A disclaimer, I'm recording at halftime in the Tottenham versus Liverpool game. Trent Alexander-Arnold has picked up an assist. Salah has also, as my captain, picked up an assist, although there has been the clean sheet wipeout for Trent. Fingers crossed for a few more points in the second half. Looking at my team so far, I'm on 56 points with a -8. Now, that is just above the safety score before you take the -8 away. So I am on a red arrow from 35k down to 48k. And to be honest, on a -8, my red arrow only being that small actually feels quite good. I was expecting a lot worse. And I'm on a green arrow from where I went on the -8. So after I took the -8 straight after the deadline, I dropped from about 35k to 56k or so. So that was the sort of real starting point. And I know I took a -8, but I have been up from there. So yes, I've been knocked down by the -8, but the team as a whole has performed okay. Now, again, my sort of overall rank, my overall points of things will change once that Liverpool game has finished, but it's unlikely to get much worse unless, of course, there's a red card to someone like Trent or Salah in the second half of that game. I did bring in, as part of that -8, I brought in Alexander Isak for Matheus Cunha. So Cunha did score, but Alexander Isak did well. I did bring in Munoz of Crystal Palace, who didn't play, but I did have Mykolenko come in off my bench for his 7 points, which is great. Although the only week I ever get Mykolenko returns is the week he's playing against Chelsea, my team. Also a disclaimer, he's currently on 1 bonus. There's a small chance he loses that in a late update. However, I did sell Morgan Rogers and Semenyo. Now, I wouldn't have started both. I would have started probably one as part of the big 4 transfers I made this week and bought an Ahmad. He didn't do anything. Generally, it's pretty close about whether it paid off. The Mykolenko getting a clean sheet makes it just about sort of positive from the players I sold versus the players I bought. But because I took a -8, I think I'm about 5 points down. But a -8, 3 points up effectively. So it's not the end of the world. Let's see how the last couple of second half of that game go. Let's have a look at Game Week 18. So going into Game Week 18, the plan, of course, always was going to be to roll the transfers after the -8. We have David Raya in goal. We've got Gabriel double up with Ipswich at home. We had Trent. We then bring in Munoz away at Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth are looking pretty nice, and Palace did concede a lot of goals, but Palace were without Eze, Munoz, and Trevor Chalobah for that game in their starting 11. So I'm hopeful that they get a little bit better in some of the games I've got coming up. And of course, Southampton at home in Game Week 19. And Munoz has had a week and a half's rest, having not played in the Cup or the Premier League. Palmer, Saka, Salah, and Ahmad, all with really nice fixtures in there. Currently would be planning on playing Ahmad over Enzo again, just because I've already got double Chelsea attack in Jackson and Palmer in there, and I'm benching Enzo. Then it's going to be João Pedro, and it's going to be Alexander Isak. The team on paper looks really nice. The plan before anything was to roll the transfer. Mykolenko and Greaves bench with their fixtures away at Arsenal and away to Manchester City this week. However, it looks like Saka has a fairly bad hamstring injury. We don't know at time recording quite how bad it is. And the issue is we're not going to know really before the deadline unless we get any sort of reporter news or sort of leaks from inside the club, which doesn't really happen at Arsenal because they don't play until the 28th, which is the day, they don't play until the 27th, the day after Boxing Day, which means their press conference will be on Thursday, which is the day of the deadline at 11 o'clock in the morning. So the chances are we don't hear from Arteta before the deadline. So we're not really going to know on Saka. Now, I could do a couple of things. I've, of course, got 1 free transfer, so I could just sell Saka. It's probably the most likely thing I do. Or I do actually have Enzo Fernandez first sub with Fulham at home, and I could play him and bench Saka and wait for a little bit more news. Now, that would be the right thing to do if the injury didn't look quite as bad as it does. At time of recording, it looks significant. And because they've got 3 game weeks in the space of about 8, 9, 10 days, the chances of him making any of the next 3 games, especially Ipswich at home, does look pretty slim. The only concern is I don't massively love the replacements. So we'll get onto the replacements for Saka. Outside of that, I'm pretty happy. João Pedro, the other one who's been a bit of a disappointment, I suppose, and Jackson as well. With Chelsea being disappointing, it as a result means Jackson is as well. I plan on keeping Jackson, but I am potentially looking at some João Pedro replacements, and downgrading Saka could give me the money to do that. So we're going to start off by using the FPL website, and I will have the graphics in this video as well, just to summarize. But effectively with Saka, I have 10.3. So given I have Salah and Palmer, I effectively, if I wanted to, could bring in any midfielder that I wanted. I could, for example, go to Heung-min Son. Now, that's the closest in terms of price. The fixtures coming up are not bad, though. Away at Forest is maybe not the easiest. Wolves at home, Newcastle at home is okay. But I think if I was going to go Spurs, it probably would be James Maddison. He's just scored in the game so far. The only thing with Maddison is, I mean, he's played 47 at the moment. That's time recording. The minutes are a little bit hit and miss. You've seen 11, you've seen 76. There were a couple of games earlier on where he wasn't even in the starting 11, which is a little bit of a put off for someone like Maddison. I could go to City. Their run of fixtures coming up is the best. Everton at home, Leicester away, West Ham at home, Brentford away, Ipswich away in all of the next 5. And you can see that FPL have actually changed the FDR and they've given Brentford away a red fixture, which I don't personally agree with, although they have been pretty good at home. I could go to someone like that, like a Manchester City. And, if I'm not buying Haaland back into my team, having a Foden, having a De Bruyne could be a way to cover Manchester City. But they're not playing well, and it's a lot of money to invest in a player just because they have some good fixtures. The most obvious player that I think most people will go to is Bruno Fernandes. Although it was a blank and a poor performance from them against Bournemouth, he did have some decent data like 0.46 XG, 0.40 XA, sort of 0.86 overall. He's playing 90 and they do have a nice run of fixtures. You could go to a similar Arsenal player in someone like a Martin Odegaard, but generally the returns from him have been pretty low. So if I'm going to be spending more than about 7 million on a player, it could be Maddison, but I'm slightly concerned about his minutes. So it probably would be Bruno Fernandes. In terms of some of the cheaper ones, I could go to Anthony Gordon. Now, I've already got Alexander Isak, but he's been pretty consistent. 7.2, it'd be a nice rotating player and it would free up a lot of money to potentially do someone like a João Pedro in. And then there are a couple of cheap ones. The real one that I have a look at is Sarr of Crystal Palace. Now, I've already got Munoz in my team, but 17 points against Brighton, 7 against Arsenal. He scored 13 a few weeks ago against Aston Villa. Without Eze, they're not as good. But if you have a look at the upcoming fixtures that Crystal Palace do have, it is a really, really nice run. The run of fixtures all the way up until about game week 30 is great. And that's why I bought Munoz into my team, because I just plan on playing Munoz every single week now until we get there. I think at the moment, the most likely thing is to go and buy Bruno Fernandes. And that would leave me, not to do this week, because João Pedro is Brentford at home and I'll keep him for that. But it would allow me up to 7.7 as a potential replacement for a potential forward. And the flavour of the moment is going to be someone like a Gabriel Jesus. I, in theory, could go up to Dominic Solanke, although I'm not certain I particularly want to do that. I could punt on a Mateta, but his minutes, like 59 and 80 in the past couple, is not great. The big one, of course, that people are going to be looking at now is Gabriel Jesus. He scored a hat-trick in the Cup, 2 goals and assist against Crystal Palace. The only slight caveat is, do the minutes stick? They are lacking a little bit of open play goal threat at the moment, Arsenal, and maybe if a player is scoring goals like Gabriel Jesus, he could potentially come in. So I do have the money to do that switch of João Pedro up to Gabriel Jesus if I did Bruno Fernandes in. So that would be a potential switch. But the issue is, if I'm not going to do it this week, I'm missing the Ipswich fixture. So there are a couple of moving parts that I'm potentially thinking about. Looking at João Pedro in isolation, if I didn't, have loads of money, Jimenez and Chris Wood. I mean, Chris Wood, I would have to free up the money. So if I just went sideways, it would be Jimenez. But we have seen with a slight rotation of minutes between Jimenez and Muniz, as we saw this week, we don't necessarily know he's nailed. So I probably wouldn't do that. So the only chance of me selling João Pedro in the next few weeks is if I free up money, which I didn't plan on doing. Now we've got Bukayo Saka injured. So in terms of replacements, there were 3 real top replacements. Is just go to Bruno Fernandes. He's the best of the premium options. I prefer him to the likes of Maddison, prefer him to the likes of Son, Foden and Kevin De Bruyne as well. Come down a little bit in price to go to someone like Anthony Gordon, who has a decent amount of fixtures, and double up with Alexander Isak, because we're getting to the point now where Isak doesn't massively boost rank. Or I go all the way down to someone like a Sarr, because I'm not sure if the others are actually worth that much money on top of him. All three of those would give me money in the bank to upgrade João Pedro, probably to someone like Gabriel Jesus. But if I don't trust his minutes, it's probably going back to my guy, Chris Wood. So just wrapping that up and having a look at what it means for my team. So we said we've got David Raya in goal. We're doubling up on our defense with Gabriel. It is the same defense with Trent Alexander-Arnold and now the unsuspended Munoz back in my defense away at Bournemouth. Into midfield, it is Palmer, it is Salah, and it is Ahmad. I do have one free transfer and I do plan on selling Bukayo Saka. I could roll and just play Enzo, but I do think selling Bukayo Saka is the thing I'm going to do. I would probably say I'm 70% likely to go to Bruno Fernandes despite the performance we saw against Bournemouth in game week 17. I still think he's the one I like the most, the biggest routes to points, and we know what he has done a couple of times over the past couple of weeks, and he's on penalties. And over this busy Christmas period, could Gordon get a rest? We've seen it previously. Could Ismail Assar get a rest? We've seen that as well. Jackson, João Pedro, Isak up front. Enzo, Mikalenko, and Greaves on the bench. Kamsiarman is obviously on Mo Salah at home to Leicester. The most reliable, the most consistent. Palmer and Chelsea did slow a little bit against Everton this week. So Salah captain, Palmer vice captain. I haven't confirmed the transfer. I am hopefully going to wait a little bit until we see an update on Saka if we get on before the deadline. But, you know, I do think Bruno Fernandes is likely to be the transfer in. I haven't confirmed it at the moment. Hopefully I'll let you know if and when I do that. But that's the plan. The plan was to roll the transfer, and I don't have the luxury of doing that this week. But the benefit of taking the -8 this week is I do now have a spare transfer this week to sell Bukayo Saka, which is the plan for Bruno Fernandes. So that is all for this transfer plans, team selection video, all wrapped into one. Fingers crossed when I end this video and I'm editing, I get a few more points from those Liverpool players in the second half of that game. Thank you so much for watching. Drop any questions you have, early thoughts for game week 18. If you are not buying Bruno Fernandes, Gordon, or Ismail Assar, let me know in general who your Bukayo Saka replacement is going to be, or are you just going to bench him this week? Let me know all of that in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. The podcast will be back on Monday evening. We have a special guest, Crystal Palace fan, who I can hopefully talk to Munoz about, so stay tuned for that when that does come out on Monday as well. Thank you for watching. 2,000 likes to the end, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.